a wanderer, an explorer, an uncharted atlas. Through the gulf of black and bleach are the grays that divide us, and the grace that reminds us we are in between the light and the love, where Hamlin rambled on the seas of the sun. And the sun that he saw was a rambling man, words, 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 a multiple verse. It was him he was seeing, an infant at birth, Hamlin, an ancestor, in instant rehearse. He dove from the wind, he sailed on the rocks, breathe, breathe, breathe. A banner over time, a portal without worlds, a verse without words, a dimension with altered rhyme, where periods become dots and time a line, eternally, eternally, everything divine. And on that road of 24 years were 333 days of infinite hours. And every week, you must seek to find. On that trail, Hamlin chose a signpost that he felt the best, a prism that stops, that shops, that tops the rest. In peace, he hiked inside to see. All red, he read, reality. Hello? 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 Just him, just Hamlin, the mirror in me. Let's mention this dimension has 4 walls, not 3. He looked right at us, right through us, but we couldn't see. This portal was different, geometric, monochromatic. It was filled with cars and guns and aesthetic static. All of these were dangerous, mindless, automatic. Right here, right now, Hamlin was home. Home. Home! But different, geometric, monochromatic. The people moved in halls and strip malls, drove in parking lots of cars, and drove lots of cars in parks. It felt like imagination. It felt like fantasy. There was Hoyer, Bucktail, Josh Valentine. But they couldn't see. What was this world? This real that was so filled with fake? The clothes are identical, the buildings all matched. This was designed by humans? Or were humans all trapped? In a multiverse of anything, he might have expected this too. But if he read it in a book, he'd flip right through. Where are the Mafia folk? The community lanes? He found them on interstates, and interstates on Main. Some buildings familiar, built in a time before cars. Some buildings flattened, and that's it. They didn't do anything. A reality of asphalt and scars. Whose fault? Not us. It's reality. Who cares? Hamlin knew they couldn't see him, but he wished that they could smell his world, if only for a breath. The frontier at sundown, after a cool fall rain, the wild, the laughter, the women and the men, the joy from the theater, the heartbeat of hammers, the taste of new lips. The wild, the West. Hamlin wanted to go back. Save this world for a book, or better, a song, sung at a campfire, of a world that looks wrong. Hamlin saw a figure in the distance. He could tell he was different. This man was rambling. He walked toward the mystery and ruminated his last on this world he found stranger than fiction. But what did he know? A wanderer? A youngling? An unconscious ghost? Maybe they needed to grow fields of gravel and plastic and asphalt the most. Maybe they preferred to lay on pavement instead of Josh's orchard of trees. Maybe they loved to hear the highways, sit in traffic, or be alone. Or did they hate it and try to drive more and farther, faster, to get it away from their home? Did the family shape the highway? Or did the highway shape the family? This reality knew that family was important. But so were 8 parking spots for each car. And more cars than drivers. "Go Bills," said the man, not turning but looking out at the swirling brushstroke sky. "We're not in Kansas anymore, Pancho." Pancho Billa, in a sombrero, mask, and smile, turned to Hamlin. The strongest hearts of the nation clasped forearms in a dream. "We still can't stand Kansas," Pancho said and laughed. "They call it Kansas City here." "So are you here to stay or just passing through, mijo?" "I don't even know what age we're in right now," said Hamlin. "Neither do I. A whole different set of portals in the multiverse opened for us, and others closed. This one's pretty loco." "Low-key? I'm pretty sure the dominant life form is robotic wagons." "No," whispered Hamlin. "See? They demolido whole neighborhoods and parks to build expressways, and the people live in little garages over the car's home." Pancho looked over both shoulders to make sure no SUVs or vanity trucks were eavesdropping. "But as post-apocalyptic as it is, I keep returning here between adventures. I feel like it's connected to our home in some way. Like what we do impacts them. I'll see references or records that could be referring to us. Or maybe it's them who impacted us somehow." Pancho gave a warm look to a mother and 2 children. This family wore blue and red and white, and played and laughed and danced. Pancho kept watching. His mijos. "And I visit here often," said Pancho, and then added with a smile, "especially during Dia de Muertos." The 2 Mafia folk walked the lane of sunken expressway that rocketed through the homes. An expressway that was once a parkway for rambling. Ghosts upon ghosts. Commuters blazed through them, and their community. It wasn't getting any quieter, so Hamlin finally asked, "Are you part of this realm's defenders?" "No. It's like Cuento de Hadas here, you know? Make-believe?" began Pancho. "Imagine our multiverse, just without the weakenings, if you can." Okay, so they call their realms cities. Think Kansas City, New York City, Diversity. And all these cities are set in the same age. This one, car time, or whatever they call it. You with me? "Yes, I think so," said Hamlin. "So, now imagine, since all these cities are in the same time, they have the same technology, and food, and government, and culture, language, entertainment, basic resources, you name it. So their defenders are also basically the same. If they weren't wearing their realm's colors, you might not recognize any difference between a Bill or a Viking or a Jet, even a Titan," explained Pancho. "Really? They actually have to write the name of their team on their uniforms. They are so identical. Probably made at the same watermill, I imagine." "But they still capture dignity and share it with the Mafia folk?" asked Hamlin, as the 2 walked under a caged overpass with an American flag askew. "I don't think so. I'll admit, I don't know what fantasy points are, but they sound obviously made up, like a plot device." If there is dignity here, I haven't seen it. If anything, it seems like it might be backwards. The Mafia folk take it from their water, and they give it to the viceroys and steel barons, especially if they threaten to abandon their realm. Oh no. How could that be possible? That's like moving a mountain range or the Grand Gorge, said Hamlin in fear. Well, apparently, here they actually pretend to own the land and the lakes and warriors and culture. They call these powerful ones owners instead of protectors. Hey, mijo, of all the people I see in this place, these ones are so identical. I can't even tell them apart. The two rambled on, east, climbing the retaining wall of the expressway and emerging in a stunted yard. The blinds were all drawn in front of the windows, but in front of one hung a homemade sign of glitter and markers. Go Bills. What do you say? You want to make this your home? Asked Pancho Billa to Hamlin. Make your dreams a reality? Hamlin gave him a hard look. Pancho had warm eyes behind his intricate luchador mask. Of all the so-called different cities, there is no place like home. You mean, this is the Buffalo Nation? Asked Hamlin. Nobody knew there were people living here. Someone once said this of the Buffalo Nation. Perhaps it applied double. In some alternate universe, said Pancho, somehow beyond the multiverse, and we can live here. Legends never die. You are a wizard then, senor? Asked Hamlin. Just a friend. And perhaps today, a realtor, if you like. It's really up to you. What's a realtor? Is that like a raptor? I think so, said Pancho. In this world, there are secret agents that help people move into real estates without the cars knowing. I see the bill symbol. In downtown, there's references to our architecture. But honestly, it's hard to recognize this exactly. It feels like they accidentally made some mistakes. Or on purpose, tragically. Pancho Billa lowered his head. What do you mean, on purpose? Asked Hamlin. Humans made this world. From owners to younglings to lawyers, farmers with no name, every one of them an author. Pancho walked across another empty parking lot that made them feel small. As identical as the people of this nation are, it seems all they can talk about is how different they are. To you or any newcomer, they might seem like clones. But don't tell them that. They divide and divide and divide 6 ways to Sunday. Their flavor of pop culture, popcorn, their politics, wealth, words, jobs, gods, pods. You wouldn't believe me, but they divide themselves based on how much melanin is in their skin. Wait, melan's in their skin? What is that? Asked Hamlin. Oh, it's easy. It's just a word for molecules that make their hair and eyes and skin different shades of brown. Just another healthy part of the body. It actually changes in animals and humans every time they're in the sun or away from it. I must not be understanding, said Hamlin. Why divide people on such a random, universal thing? I don't know. Well, how does it impact anything about who someone is or their valuable skills? It doesn't, said Pancho. It's just a story they tell here. A big, powerful fantasy story. It's not even a very good story. If they're all authors, like you said, it sounds like lazy writing. And yet, I guess it would be really hard to keep track of. To divide their whole world around shades of hair and eye color. Mostly just skin. Hair they don't mind. Eyes they don't talk about. But you said melanin, confirmed Hamlin. But then it must change as the sun goes down. Because with less light and more shadow, everything becomes the same color. And over the radio or in a letter, So then their horses and puppies and dragons are treated differently, based on their color? Asked Hamlin. Actually, no. Cars, clothes, food? Just humans. What? Hamlin shouted. Don't ask me. It's not very intuitive and wastes them a lot of productivity, admitted Pancho. So it isn't really that big of a deal. I guess I got ahead of myself, said Hamlin, beginning to understand. No, you wouldn't believe me. But this particular nuance of a universal feature may be their biggest divider. These authors read it, they learn it, they teach it, and they write it into so many sentences and stories and narratives that, to them, it matters a lot. Pancho gestured to the geometric, monochromatic building behind them. Identical to all the others, they had to write the name of it on the top in order to tell it apart from the other identical, long, flat, square buildings with parking lots. Its symbol was a stop sign in red. Its name read Tops. This season, an ignorant, brainwashed coward was told the wrong story so much that he drove here, spoke to the people, was encouraged to visit Niagara Falls, and returned to murder 10 innocent Mafia folk and shoot 3 more. Pancho's sombrero was off and held low. Right here? Asked Hamlin in Buffalo. Right now, said Pancho in present day. The two looked at the 10 memorials and flowers and lifetimes. They joined a third figure, a third rambling man, who had stopped by this grocery store to pay his respects. He wore a suit and a blue and red tie. The trio, together, 1, 2, and 3, looked to the stolen Bills fans, the Mafia, their family, the stolen children and classmates and grandmothers and deacons, murdered. Because their skin, not eye color, not character, not skills, not age, not height, not profession, not contribution, not politics, not attitude, not selflessness, not criminal record, not sense of humor, not relationship, not weather, not citizenship, not interest, not backstory, not merit, not freedom, not value, was a particular shade. Everyone has a shade. This particular shade, a particular child, was groomed to hate by us, the authors of society. Because for a long time, we've sucked at writing, and a poorly written story was told far too loud. This season, 10 Bills fans do not get to see their version of Josh of Allentown or Hollywood Diggs, or fight for the super collapse. They don't get to know that their entire team, their president, came to visit their grocery store and lay flowers by their names. They don't get to be the first person to wish their granddaughter happy birthday, or bring a cake home for their 3-year-old son. They don't get to keep engineering a hydrogen-powered truck engine, or petition their city to remove a highway from their neighborhood. They don't get to visit their husband in the nursing home tomorrow, or drive their new car. They don't get to teach, preach, volunteer, or cheer because their skin was a particular shade, a nuance of a universal feature. Their judge said it best, said the third man. There is no place for even one racist, or their ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society. Amen, said Pancho Billa. Amen, said Hamlin, and he turned to the solemn figure. Is there any hope for this world? For this version of Buffalo and their nation? What do you think, Pancho? Me, Mr. Russert. Of course I believe there is hope. Tanta Esperanza. Look no further than our beloved Buffalo Bills. It may only be me, but I have not seen anything in their world that unifies as many people, as many strangers. Ante, it is our Bills. It is where we are the most one, most generoso to one another, You name it. Loyal, helpful, trusting, and friendly. Familia. Mafia. Those are strong words, said Mr. Russert. For a strong mafia, said Pancho Billa, a legend who knew. Our city is one of the most segregated in America, said Russert. Churches, schools, neighborhoods, jobs, restaurants, festivals, grocery stores. But game day. Buffalo is at her strongest. Game day. 6 ways to Sunday, repeated Hamlin. What? Asked Pancho. That's what you said. They divide themselves 6 ways to Sunday. The stories that they tell. They think they are so different. Or the stories tell them that they are. But if they could just meet the rest of the week with the same story and character as Sunday, they might make it better. To remember that first, they're all Stronghearts. The way of the Mafia, said Pancho, putting on his sombrero. Who remembers? Asked Russert. The Bills should remember that they're all Stronghearts first? No. All of the authors, said Hamlin. The next chapter needs written. Are you going to stay, mijo? Asked Pancho. Or ramble on? Russert, Hamlin, and Billa looked at their wild version of Niagara Falls. It had been recommended, after all. You could live right here, with a view of the falls, suggested Russert. That is, if you don't prefer South Buffalo. The world could use a hero like you, encouraged Russert. He meant it genuine. I know I'm technically a Buffalo Bill, and after your time, but I'm not one of the heroes. I'm not even a certified lawyer yet, admitted Hamlin. I've actually made some of the biggest mistakes. If it weren't for those, I'm not sure people would even know my name. You don't need to be famous to be a hero, mijo. Grand Russert can't back me up since half a dozen presidents have watched his show. But we all shape the world. Most Mafia folk don't know my name, and even less have seen my face. I am not a lawyer or a gunslinger, just a funeral director from Dallas. Hamlin understood that both of these legends, famous or anonymous, not only chose love every day of their lives, but embodied love. And that is something I could do. So, will you stay with us? Asked Russert with a mischievous smile. Not mean, but playful. To be an eternal legend of Bill's Mafia. We always need great heroes, great symbols of love, to help write the story. To be louder than hate. Simple, universal, paramount. Hamlin watched the Niagara fall over the horseshoe for an eternity, before asking how long he'd even been in this world. 10 minutes. 3 days. And I think that's all for now. Hamlin knew his answer, and thanked the legends for their unbelievable wisdom. But mostly, for helping build a mafia of love. I think the truth is, I'm a student of the untouchable laws, of Allentown zoning codes or JBL Poyer's strategy and Mr. Hyde's charisma. I think it's actually the multiverse that could use a hero like me, where I can help the rough and tumble Wild West show battle things like ancient Vikings and post-apocalyptic robotic lions. Maybe even the occasional jet, said Hamlin. For the true evils of racism and hatred, it's not a superhero they need to save them. It's them. It's for the heroes of this world. And they can do it, said Pancho. Make every day as fun as game day. To choose love. Pancho Billa laughed and gave his mijo a noogie. Mr. Russert smiled at Hamlin's handshake, but gave him a bear hug instead. Viva los Bills! Shouted Pancho. Go Bills, son, said Russert. And, oh yes, squish the fish. Hamlin rambled on. His stop was complete. He made the greatest comeback from utter defeat. The wanderer, the explorer, the uncharted atlas. Through the gulf of ebony and white is the grace that defines us. A multitude of colors that combine us in between light and love and fate, where Hamlin charged through the seas of the sun. Hours, hours, hours into our season. Only 3 hours late. 3 days after the collapse, 3 days of travel from 3:30 a.m. to now, there had been no word. While beating, it felt like 3 days of a whole nation's heart in suspense. As they crossed the final suspension bridge, there was no thrill. As the bison forded the final river, there was no thirst-quenching drink. 3 days after 55 fallen made 17 years feel like a weekend. Exhaustion isn't a strong enough word. Exhaustion was the feeling on the way out, before fundamental paradigms shifted into the psyche of traumatized men. The oldest among them only 32, most just younglings with beards and shell shock. How final was the canceled summit? Would showmen retire to their families? Would they be blamed? Would there be will to center a multiverse in a super collapse? Would they be blamed? It was uncharted territory, and the blank hole of unknown realms once again marked the Buffalo Nation. There weren't supposed to be people living here. Beyond the pale. The Buffalo Bills Wild West Show and Congress of Rough Riders stepped out of the jungle and weakening through time into the pale. Weak old white uniforms, miserable and worn, walked into weak old white snow and ice. Into the unknown with frozen hearts. Toward the rider, shouting. Josh lifted his heavy head. He walked faster to the rider on a pony, shouting from the Pony Express, "Supercade! What news? How is Hamlin?" Supercade simply said, "We hoped you would have news." A flood of exhaustion returned to Cade's face. Hope had been a worthy mask. There is something, Josh. But it's not as important as Hamlin. Sure, go ahead, brother, said Josh. Dawkins turned his head as well. The Sons of Liberty arrived in Allentown 3 days ago to pay their respects. We suspect an ambush. The Buffalo soldiers hadn't done anything but walk and wait and worry since the opening ceremony of the most important peace summit of the multiverse, 6 days ago. Supercade walked back to his pony and unlatched his saddlebag, which burst open. That's a lot of mail. Let me help you, said Hines, one of the porters who'd volunteered to help during the No-Town migration. Many Mafia folk enlisted after the Viking invasion. And, well, Hines just never went home. That said, the Bills were a proud unit and traveled tough, so there hadn't been much work for a Colt runner. So, Hines earned his stay in cargo. I don't think I know you. I'm Cade. I hear it's Super Cade. Name's Hines. Don't feel bad, you didn't miss me. I just ain't gotten a letter before. My girlfriend called me No-Name Hines until I proposed we get married and share a name. I don't mind a little privacy. Superheroes need their sidekicks. And, Hines whispered, their sidekicks need somebody to load the wagons. Cade laughed. Well, Super Cade, that is. We've never had this much mail in a whole week. said Cade, emptying a saddlebag, and Hines lifted out a third bundle of notes and gifts. Mafia folk had made and even sewn a beautiful Buffalo Nation flag with Hamlin's 3 on it.
And all of this mail is just for the squad. Look out yonder.
Hines certainly looked, but so did Milano, Hawkeye, Josh, and the others. Out yonder, around the mountain valleys and the steep, lines of wagons and mid-century cargo trucks and dog sleds approached town and camped outside. 9 trains waited on the tracks for access to New Fort York Station. Is it a migration? Asked Bass.
It's mail,
said Super Cade.
We've seen stamps from realms we didn't even know existed. Oh, we thought were made up.
Oh yeah? Asked Josh, a boy who may or may not have sent thousands of letters to people who were quite possibly made up. What are they sending? Can you tell?
They're all to Hamlin. Mostly cards, long letters, toys. Some even have a bit of dignity.
That looks like a lot of mail carriers. How many packages is he up to then? Asked Dorsey. 2,000? 2,500?
9 million so far, sir.
Oh. Hines passed out the bundle of notes to the bills themselves. Thousands of messages, written prayers from every faith, heart hands, choosing love. Mackenzie Slim raised their Hamlin flag up on their largest wagon. From there he could see Allentown in the distance on the hill. Darker smoke than usual, and Minutemen riding its perimeter. All this activity, nobody home. No wonder the great general's lads are visiting, grumbled Dorsey with a scowl.
Only, sir, people are home. Because of the storm in Hamlin. I don't think there's anywhere else Mafia folk would rather be, said Super Cade. Except you're right about the Minutemen. They're everywhere.
Are they safe? What's the situation? Asked Josh, preparing Ron's Pinto for an offensive.
All them patriots are pretty dug in. No traffic in or out that doesn't go through their toll gate. But my dad's been calling it the deflate gate. 'Cause any package that's let through is opened and lighter than it should be. Mum says it isn't funny.
More Buffalo Bills gathered around the child spy.
The general, with no sleeves. He said they'd help us clean up from the storm and we welcomed them. As students moved all our broken wagons and debris out of the way, stacked them high around town, but mostly at the foot of Main Street. And by the next morning, we realized they was barricades. The whole town is under martial law.
Terrible timing, said Lawson. Crafty timing, said Gardner Dawkins. Did I not tell you he was fighting us? Even as he let us walk through. Yeah, Josh remembered. But Josh also remembered something Uncle Brian had told him once after he'd wrestled a cougar to the ground, barehanded. Josh could have died that day, like so many others. But he didn't. He won. What Uncle Brian had said never made sense. Until now. Most warriors spend their whole life sharpening their sword. After all, besides luck, it's the only thing keeping them alive in the chaos of battle. Uncle Brian had said this from the front of a canoe during the 4 years. Josh kept paddling through the mist. But the master spends their whole life waiting for a crack in the armor.
Or orchestrates one.
A scowling Fraser added in present tense, lowering a telescope. Allentown looked like it was part of a battered revolution. Is there a resistance? Asked Monsieur Rousseau.
Some. Smuggling in Hamlin's mail. Sneaking me out. But the Mafia folk have been almost silent and in mourning since we heard Hamlin's fall. And saw the newsreels play right after the blizzard services,
said Kate.
They seem to have less fight in them. More charity. Making things that are good.
It's the way, said Blizzard Dancer. The way of the Mafia has pulled us through hard times before. They trust it. Josh nodded and glanced at that man who had lived longer than any of them with the wisest natives. White had tears streaming down his cheeks. I know, said Josh, and walked across the circle to give his brother a hug.
He's still with me.
He's still with me heavy. I know.
He is still with us,
said Fraser, adding a hand on Blizzard Dancer. Dorsey was quick to join. And Bear, Bo, Rousseau, Milano, Big Iron, Bucktail. McDermott, too, stepped through the week and laid a hand on the outer fringe of his Buffalo Bills. I dedicate everything I have left to our brother and greatest hero, said Josh of Allentown, staring into Blizzard Dancer's eyes, who just quivered in his own thoughts, until he looked up fast. Screamed Blizzard Dancer. Roared the Buffalo Bills. Wailed Blizzard Dancer. Roared the Buffalo Nation. Not clowns, then. The chant came from a deeper place, a richer place than it ever had before. It took more salt and mucus, more blood and raw emotion. For better or worse, this band of brothers had broken into a different plane. Uncharted territory. There was never supposed to be people living here. Of all Buffalo Bills to stand in the center at the end of the chant was their volunteer porter, a colt runner, rearing on his fastest horse, no-name Hines. The man brandished the buffalo flag with the 3 marks of Damar. Behind him stood an occupied city, a dozen blockades crawling with patriots singing a revolutionary hymn. Red rockets and a warning shot burst in midair. They'd heard the Mafia chant.
Soldier, the great general is entrenched,
began Fraser in a settling tone.
Bills! Today you see me. You do not know me.
Drummers and fifers played in their home. The Mafia folk are hostages, said Dorsey.
Witness not me, but who I ride for,
shouted the colt runner.
We must not let our emotions pick our shots,
said Fraser.
Witness not me, but for whom I ride out for.
The no-name rider reared his horse and he bucked into a charging gallop. A one-man stampede with violent speed. The blue and red flag of Hamlin tore at the winter wind, tore at the hearts of men.
For Hamlin,
shouted Josh and sprung onto Ron's Pinto, charging. Musket balls zinged and pelted through the frontier.
For Hamlin,
cried Knox and Blizzard Dancer, charging. Cannons fired from the barricades.
For Hamlin,
cried the united front of the Buffalo Bills. No-name Hines, the flag bearer, broke the edge of the perimeter lances and galloped so much faster. Flintlock smoke and bayonets crowned the first blockade. Hines broke through. The cacophony of the Mafia folk of Allentown cried out to see a savior. They bore witness not to Hines, but who he rode for. The second blockade fired muskets. Not one of them hit true. The strong heart screamed louder than bullets. The no-name hero crashed through the final blockade, knocking the great general from his own horse and falling through the air. The 6-star general collided with a table below, smashing it clean.
This is Storybook!
With nothing left before him but the screaming Mafia folk in the rubble of New Fort York, Hines ran his colt up a damaged rampart to the highest point of the surviving tower. Hines planted the flag of Buffalo, the flag of Hamlin, at its peak, where it belonged. Tableaus of wild Western soldiers had tears once again. Heavy drops of salt water shone from bright eyes. Hands raised to the heavens. Hugs crushing their partners. It wasn't just the Bills. Hines looked back at the western village of Allentown. Both battered and electric. Total jubilee. Both fallen and resurrected. Total jubilee. Overlooked and omnipresent. Total jubilee. If this wasn't fandemonium, nothing was. And why? The telegraph was raced to the charging Bills to report what had just broke barricades of its own behind enemy lines. Western York Telegraph Company, 716 priority, Pan Am 14 paid, via Steel Pit, via Ben Raj, Allentown, NFY January 5. Awake, stop. Wrote first 3 words, stop. Did we win? Stop. HYWD, Diggs, 10:58 p.m.
He's alive!
He's alive!